Welcome to episode 1 of Ask Coach Wine. Man, that's a good question. I see people all the time in the gym that come in to work out for an hour, hour and a half, and they'll immediately grab a cup of coffee. The reason why I don't promote that and why it's not a good idea is because of cortisol production. So cortisol is that stress hormone, and ideally after a workout, we're gonna do things to kind of recover, replenish. So for that specific question of how long, I do not recommend doing it right away. Usually I would tell people at least 60 to 90 minutes after your workout, after you've had the time to ingest protein into your body and allowed it to start to digest, then you can have another cup of coffee. Unfortunately, most supplement companies on the market I think are garbage. I think most supplements are unnecessary. However, I do find that there are times when supplements are needed. The first way I always started is if you do want to get a blood panel and you get checked out where your micronutrients are at, where your vitamins are at, so you might be iron deficient, things like that, that's fine. I actually think that's a good idea. Doesn't mean I don't think it's necessary all the time, but if you feel like you're having issues, that's a solid place to start. Specifically when you're talking about supplements, I'm going to be honest, I'm always skeptical, okay? I always come into it with skeptic because I'm thinking somebody's selling me something. We do need omega-3s. We do need to change our overall diet as a whole. So when we want to start that route, we should go into a whole food, real food diet where we start getting in, if I'm going to eat nuts, they'd maybe be walnuts. I don't need a ton, but just walnuts. That's one side of it. You'd have, some grass-fed meat, things like that. As far as a brand of fish oil, an easy company for me to keep going back to is Carlson. It's been around for a long period of time, been dominating the fish oil market, claiming it from ice cold waters, which is what you want. The reason why Carlson has seemed to have been more popular is because of their levels of EPA and DHA, both healthy fats, plus they list their omega-3 fat and tell you exactly how much is in it. Thorne is another company you might want to look up if you're thinking about magnesium and some of these other supplements. Those are just to name a few. I'm always skeptical of supplement companies as a whole, but those two brands have seemed to kind of come out of nowhere. If you want more, feel free to message me, DM me, and I will definitely give you more supplement companies. Now, I promote a 1-to-1, so that's a per pound, per gram in terms of protein and body weight. Specifically, I do recommend that we try to shift towards the whole food, real food eating. That is absolutely better. It has a lot to do with the micronutrients, the vitamins, the micronutrients. It's really helpful. So it's good to try to get as much protein as you can from real food, real whole food. And that's high quality protein as well, like grass-fed meat is always something that I shift towards as far as red meat goes. Chicken is great. Now, what we look at in terms of how we ingest or how we digest protein, we'll go into the DV, which is the digestion value. So let's say that, for example, normally steak or red meat would be about a 91 out of 100. So that means that out of 100 grams, your body would absorb and work at around 91. Soy is around the same, although I do not promote soy because it has estrogens and it's just not a good protein. When you start getting into some of the plant-based proteins, it drops down. It's usually around you go down to 60 to 70 out of 100. But your top for your real food is gonna go into eggs, and chicken, poultry, that kind of stuff too. Whey, so whey is a good protein to have. You'll start to digest more of it. My protein of choice in terms of powder would be a raw whey or a cold filtered, more natural, holistic whey protein that's grass-fed. That's gonna be a better choice rather than a lot of these processed wheys, which are all garbage. So you do wanna spend a little bit more on the protein powder, but in terms of how do I reach the 1-to-1, I do think it's okay to have a shake. I think that's actually a helpful way to add more protein in, but in general, you should consume the majority of your protein from real food. So I've noticed a trend from being in this, specifically the performance strength conditioning field, where kids are becoming less and less developed as they get into high school. I think it has a lot to do with over-specializing a kid too early. So the question basically about should I specialize my kid into one sport because they take a liking to it or they show that is their best sport? Absolutely not. Do not do that at a young age. I think you can have that center sport that they really like the most where they spend a little more time at, but you should allow them periods of time that give them breaks from the sport. The earliest that I think anyone should specialize into a sport would be in high school, and that's probably more towards their sophomore, junior year. I still think they should have time off and they should be able to do other activities though. I always go back to what I like, which is basically first thing is redefine snack and turn it into a mini meal. If you can redefine it and make it a mini meal, it's gonna be better. That means your macronutrients are probably gonna be more balanced. A few of them are from Set A Foods. They've been doing a better job at producing, tortillas or chips. Again, I'm not saying that they're all great, but you can have, because they have more avocado oil and that's kind of their main oil they use. So that is why I would shift that way if I'm going to the snacks. There's another one called Made Good. That's another brand that's you in granola bars. Again, not ideal, not perfect, but it's a better choice. The Organic Annie's brand, it's a healthier choice. So don't grab the Kraft macaroni and cheese. Maybe you shift that way. And then eventually maybe you wean off of that and you go into something a little bit more healthy. So nowadays you get all these bags of basically dried apples that are like chips. Those are another thing that you could think about. Giving it a little bit of sweet, also the crunch, so your palate's satisfied. Rotisserie chicken. I think this is a quick way to get protein in. Let's say you're not perfect. I always say go more towards organic, of course, for the meat, but shred the chicken up. Let's say you don't have time to cook, buy 2 chickens, shred them all up at one time, and then you can divvy it out through the week. At least you have your protein prepped. And again, I always shift back to the protein argument. Make sure on like Sundays, you absolutely have tons of chicken or whatever meat or whatever you're gonna be using for your protein and prep it. Because the hardest part about dieting or actually eating healthy is when you get to that midweek and you have kids and you're rushing around doing all sorts of stuff, it takes a while to cook protein. You can basically craft something else up quickly, but protein's something that would be easier if you just threw it on a saute pan, reheated it real quick, and then you served it alongside. So those are the prep ways those are the easiest ways that I would prep in order to give yourself a successful week of not only eating meals, but also snacking a little bit more. Just pay attention to the sugar and the oils. Those are kind of the 2 things that I always look at first. If they're using a ton of like cottonseed, corn, soybean, canola, any of those kinds of oils, all those seed oils, I just typically say absolutely not, red exit. If they use a lot of other sugars rather than just sugar, I exit. I usually would just tell you, like, if you get a coconut sugar, great, cane sugar, okay, honey, good. But again, the sugar and oils are specifically what I look at when I judge like snacks. Well, I make dinner. So since I make dinner, I mean, I guess that's a valid question. I don't know, after I pick up the kids. Like, subscribe, and please comment. Send us messages, send us questions so we can answer more for you. And please check out my blog at nomoresoftness.com for life, nutrition, and fitness tips. Thank you again for watching.